I hope he does suffer. I hope prisoners do get hold of him, and I hope he gets a serious beat.
Being locked up for 52 years is torture, and I don't want to torture this scumbag. I just want to put him out of his misery like we would do a rabid dog.
I know he was born here, but his parents weren't. Could he just be sent off to Rwanda again?
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's returning guest is Ash, that Preston journalist. How you doing, Ash?
Very good, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. Let's jump into the story of the week, and it's the atrocities at Southport last July, and the monster scumbag Axel Rudikabana has been in court this last few days, and we've heard more information. One of the girls he stabbed 122 times. It's absolutely horrendous. What's your take on this?
It, it's hard to add to what you said. I mean, it's just unbelievably heartbreaking what happened, isn't it? And the fact that it could have been. I don't like to turn these sort of things into just politics, but I'm sorry, you have to look at how this was allowed to happen. Um, the it's no consolation to the parents now, is it? But the guy was referred to that prevent rubbish, what, three times? He was caught, Yvette Cooper said this, he was caught in possession of a knife 10 times. Nothing was done. His own father stopped him getting in a taxi a week earlier when he feared that he was going to do something like this, yet nothing was said. And rightly, the people of Liverpool, the people of Southport, in fact, the whole country, is absolutely outraged. I don't know if you've seen, but certain MPs, not surprisingly, Lee Anderson, but also a sensible one in Rupert Law, are now calling for a serious debate on bringing back the death penalty when it's a cut and dry case like this, and there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever who committed the crime. They're calling for a serious debate on it, and I don't blame them because I've always been skeptical about the death penalty, and I've always probably sat on the side of bringing it back in, but only when there is absolutely no room for any sort of doubt whatsoever. And in this case, there wasn't. And in this case, I wouldn't, and I'm sure many people watching this wouldn't shed a tear if this guy was to be put to sleep, shall we say?
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to have a debate about the death penalty. I think we need a new death penalty system fit for the 21st century. Um, when we have this discussion, people straight away go, "Oh, innocent people were hanged in this country." Well, yes, they were. Let's make sure that doesn't happen again. Or they go, "Have you seen America? They're on death row for 30 years." Da, da, da. Well, let's not copy the American system then. We need a new system, and we need something that stops innocent people being killed. And my system that I've been thinking about for several years would involve several criteria. So the crime would have to be caught on camera, CCTV, mobile phone, so we can see the person doing it. There would have to be so many witnesses, independent witnesses, who can point to the person and say it was him that did it. And there has to be compelling DNA evidence. We've got technology now that stops a lot of these mistakes happening. But then people will say, you can't trust the police. And do you know what? You probably can't trust all the police all the time. So what happens if the police are planting evidence? Well, we get over that. But first of all, they can't plant CCTV evidence and create witnesses that don't exist, but they could plant DNA, and they've done that in the past. So what we do is bring a new law in that basically states anyone interfering in a capital punishment case, if they get caught lying, cheating, planting evidence, it's called attempted murder, and the sentence for that is the death penalty. I'm quite happy.
Be quite a deterrent, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would stop the cops, any cops, even with the best intentions of doing anything, because they're putting their life on the risk. And the reason why I want a death penalty is for revenge, isn't to punish the person anymore, because I'd like to think I'm a compassionate person, a kind person. I want a death penalty for two reasons. First of all, it puts that person out of their suffering and misery. Being locked up for 52 years is torture. And I don't want to torture this scumbag. I just want to put him out of his misery like we would do a rabid dog. Get it over and done with, put him out of his misery. The other benefit is it's going to save us tens of millions of pounds. That's how much it's going to cost us to lock him up for 52 years, tens of millions of pounds. Let's save that money and stop his suffering and end it.
And yeah, and locking him up for that long to what end? He's not what they've. I know that they're sticking to this stupid UN convention or whatever that says we can't give someone who's under 18 a life sentence. Personally, I think at the time you're in court, what's a week? You know, the guy was on what 13 days off being 18 anyway. He's now 18. He should have got a full life term anyway, if as we don't have the death penalty. But it's going to cost the taxpayer £51,000 a year ish to keep him in prison for 52 years. I mean, what is the point? They've basically given him a whole life tariff without actually saying they're giving him a whole life tariff. It's very unlikely that someone's going to survive prison, especially given the crimes that he's committed, to the age of, well, I think he'd be 69 by the time he's eligible for parole, which he probably wouldn't get anyway, you'd like to think. So what's the point in keeping him there? You're absolutely right. I mean, don't get me wrong. If he suffers, and I hope he does suffer, and maybe I'm a bit more harsh than you. I hope he does suffer. I hope prisoners do get hold of him, and I hope he gets a serious beating. I hope he gets the Ian Huntley treatment or something like that. And I really wouldn't have a single ounce of sympathy for him whatsoever. But yeah, to live like that for the next 52 years, part of me says, well, you deserve it. You deserve everything you get. Um, but then again, all that money we're going to spend on keeping him in prison for what? What's the point?
Exactly. There is no point keeping him alive, keeping him in prison. Now, you just said,
Sorry to interrupt you, Ian. I was just trying to think of the name. Ian Brady, wasn't it? He was alive for years on a tube because he went on hunger strike, and they just kept him alive there till he died on this tube. Why? Well, just take the tube out, and or let him take the tube out when you're not looking at something. Let him die. What's the point?
is it absolutely, absolutely. These people will never be allowed back into society, and they're going to be a financial drain on us. And like I said, it's mental torture. We're torturing them. And I don't want to torture people for the fun of it or to punish them. I just want it over. Now, you just said it's £51,000 a year to keep a prisoner. That's an average prisoner. A category A prisoner is between 80 and £100,000 a year. He's going to cost even more than that because he's got mental health issues. People are going to want to kill him. So he's going to be costing hundreds of thousands of pounds a year to keep him safe and alive. And you know what? We could spend that money somewhere else, couldn't we?
Yeah, of course we could, yeah. We could build a monument to those children, for example, in Southport. That'd be a good way to spend the money. But you know, I really, they won't do it, will they? But I would love to see people like this, and you know, all your paedophiles and that they're kept away, aren't they, from the general population? Which I understand why. I just throw them in with the rest, me. Honest to God, I just throw them in with the rest and just say, you asked for this, and you're gonna have to live with it. And the amount of money, you're quite right to say it, the amount of money they spend on keeping these people safe, some of the scum of the earth, keeping them safe, is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, has he got dual citizenship? Could he? I know he was born here, but his parents weren't. Could he just be sent off to Rwanda again? Could Rwanda be forced to take him back or something? There's already been talk about sending his parents back there. Now I don't know anything about his parents, so I can't speculate on their characters or anything. I believe they're church-going people and stuff, but they have a role to play in this. If it's not if the state can't punish him sufficiently because he's under 18 at the time, then you've got to look elsewhere. And we can look at the establishment, which this inquiry allegedly will do, but you've also got to look at these parents. Why was he allowed to behave like this? Why was he allowed to get hold of these knives? Why was he allowed to make rice in his bedroom allegedly? Why was he allowed these Taliban manuals or whatever it was? The parents have a role to play in this as well. And I don't know if you know that they've been moved now to a safe house, as they call it, for their own protection. So that's costing us even more money now to keep his family safe.
Yeah. His parents are guests in this country. We gave him sanctuary because he escaped from Rwanda. And in Rwanda, lots of people were involved in the genocide. So there's a chance they were involved as well. Nearly everybody was involved at some point. Um, there's an argument now. I'm not sure what side of the fence I sit on. I've not given it enough thought, but there is an argument to say we deport them because you're a guest here, and this is how you repay us by raising a mentally ill boy who's now killed people in this country. We deport you and your family. Now, that might not be fair on them, but it sends a message to every other immigrant in the country, doesn't it? That we're not willing for you to raise poor children in this country now. And if you are a second generation immigrant and you commit heinous crimes, your family now is on the line as well because we'll deport all of yous. Now, that would need looking into more. But I think that's a discussion we need to have.
Definitely, but you get no discussion like that under Labour, would you? Again, I hate to turn it to Starmer all the time, but there is a lot of things. This government has a lot of questions to answer. Maybe not the government, but I believe that the Attorney General, I forget his name now, he's a friend of Starmer's, I know that much, Lord Summit or other. Um, and Starmer himself has some big questions to answer here, questions that people are asking, even the media, or certain sections of the media, are asking about what they knew about this family. Was there a connection with this family? And I'm not saying there was. But this Matrix Chambers, where Starmer and the Attorney General used to work, has represented some very dodgy characters. If you look at their history, including the likes of Jerry Adams, etc. And Abu Hamza, I believe he was another one that was represented by them. And I would love to know if there is some sort. I'm sure there's journalists out there now looking. Was there a connection between this family, between anybody in the government, and between this Matrix Chambers? I mean, you've been saying for a while now, something's going to come along and it's going to rock this government and bring this government down. And I keep saying they're going to last till the next general election, but I'm actually starting to think on your wavelength now, slowly but surely. I'm slightly coming round to it, especially with the story that broke. Was it the Daily Mail who said that Starmer spent 19 seconds in Southport laying that reef, wouldn't look at anybody, wouldn't speak to any members of the public, then got into London, got into his car, went back down to London, and had a cocktail party with a load of wealthy Labour donors in Number 10. I mean, that if one story is damaging, it's that. I mean, of all the political scandals, people just sort of brush them off sometimes, but to spend a total of 19 seconds at this place where what we know what had happened there, and then to scurry off in your car away from angry citizens that you're supposed to be leading, let's not forget, and then to go and get drunk with your load of your rich Labour donor mates in Number 10 is an abomination.
It is. Unfortunately, that doesn't surprise anybody that a politician in our country would do that. What would be surprising and what could bring Starmer down would be if, like you say, an investigatory journalist discovers that Starmer was directly involved with the family at some point. If he helped them stay in the country, get citizenship, fight deportation, whatever it is, if his name is on a document concerning that family, I think that could be enough to bring Starmer down because Starmer's already said it never happened. And he was very Weasley about the words. His statement was in 1983, 1993 or something. Keir Starmer was not involved with the father of the Southport killer. There's lots of wiggle room there. What about the year before, year after? What about involved with his mum, getting his mum to? I don't know, but I just when I heard that statement, that made me go, "There's more to this." If they can find the evidence, it's the end of Starmer.
It's got to be there. The evidence will be there somewhere. But even if it's the Attorney General, he has to go. Which actually makes me wonder if that's why the Attorney General is now all of a sudden saying that the sentence given to that scumbag um, was unduly lenient. Now, I don't care how long they give him, whole life term, whatever, as long as possible. But I expected more like 35, 40. I thought 52, and I thought the judge, if you watch the summary of what is it, the summary given by the judge, um, he was having none of this mental health rubbish. He was having none of that crappy behaviour by that scumbag. He went straight down the line, went straight for the throat, didn't mess around. 52 years, I thought, good. That's a good sentence. He'll probably never get out anyway. But now the government, for some reason, are jumping on it, saying, "Oh, I think it's unduly lenient," which strikes me as an odd stance to take. To be quite honest with you, I'm not. Are they trying to double down on the fact that they want to cover up for any past peccadillos and just make people think, well, there's no bias here, there's no conflict of interest here. We're doubling down on this guy and making sure that he never gets out of prison effectively.
Yeah, well, it's virtue signaling. There's no downside to saying you don't like a child killer. And that's what they're basically saying. They're saying, oh, the child killer, that was a lenient sentence. Well, you get, there isn't any downside to that. There's no one going, oh, I'm for child killers. It's one of those meaningless statements that they say that they think the stupid working class will go, yeah, Labour's back on our side now because they're against child killers. It's just a stupid, nonsensical statement.
If I was feeling malicious, and I can't prove this, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, But you could argue a case, as some people have done in the media, that this was a good excuse for the Labour Party to stir up some sort of white working class rebellion, as we saw on the streets, can't you? I mean, there's a perfectly valid argument from a lot of people to say that the the lack of information given by the government at the time, despite the fact that they've had to admit now they knew exactly what had been found by the police in that guy's bedroom and all sorts, led to those riots. That's what the vacuum of information was then filled by people on Twitter making things up, people's names being thrown around that were actually innocent. It had nothing to do with them whatsoever. But these people now who were actually right, I'm not saying rioting was right. If you rioted, fine, you could do 18 months or whatever. But people who were not even involved in these riots are now languishing in prison cells, Starmer's political prisoners, I like to call them, and they should now be freed because it turns out the information that they were pumping out about terrorist connections, etc., and Islamic connections. I mean, there's a Taliban manual there, so there's got to be some sort of Islamic connections somewhere, or even if it's just the ideology, not the religion or whatever. Then those people are effectively innocent now. And it's been proven innocent by the government statement. It's been proven innocent by Merseyside Police, by the CPS, by the courts, by the trial. So all these people should now be freed because they are innocent. Unless they were rioting and setting fire to hotels and that, then fine, lock them away for a while. But that guy, well, I forget his name now. The guy who died in prison. He
Peter Lynch.
Peter Lynch. From what I heard, and I didn't meet it. I didn't meet the guy. I didn't see him. But from what I heard, he wasn't actually taking part in these riots. He was carrying a placard around and he was marching down the street. But from what I heard, he didn't attack any police. He didn't attack any hotels. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. They locked him up, and from what we heard, he killed himself. This is the government's policy, and I've very convenient for them, weren't it, to just come out and go far right, blame the white working classes, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't think Labour will U-turn on this for two reasons. The first reason is those individuals all pleaded guilty in court. So
Through bad legal advice, yeah.
bad legal advice. They pleaded guilty in court, so it doesn't matter what new evidence is introduced now. They pleaded guilty, so you can't appeal once you've pleaded guilty. The real reason why the political prisoners will not be released is because Keir Starmer knows there's going to be another atrocity. There's always an atrocity coming down the pipeline. Something else is going to happen this year or next year. And he wants to make sure the white working class remember Southport, not for the children, but for the heavy hand of the state. And he wants to make sure at the next atrocity, white working class people will be too afraid to go on the street and demonstrate. That's why he won't U-turn.
I think there's a lot of truth to that, but he wants to be careful, doesn't he? Because there's only so many people he can throw under the bus before he's the one that ends up being thrown under the bus. We know that Merseyside police are saying they were hamstrung. They wanted to release information, but the CPS told them not to. Yvette Cooper's now blaming the CPS. So it seems that the CPS now is going to be the ones that get all the flack for this. And the head of the CPS, whoever it is at the moment, will end up getting the boot. So that'll be a scalp, and they'll go, right, okay, job done, see you later, inquiry over. Um, but there's only so many of these people that are going to stick up for Starmer or cover up for Starmer before they say, actually, no, these orders came from the top and we were just obeying what the government told us to do. I mean, I think they're all at fault, don't get me wrong. CPS, Prevent, Merseyside Police, government, they're all at fault. But they've got to find that human sacrifice, haven't they, to get to toss a bit of red meat to the voters or to the media and say, "Oh, we've done our job." This inquiry, I saw a poll that said only 20% of people actually think it's going to achieve anything or lead to any sort of meaningful change. And it's not, and you've said this before, an inquiry is only there to sweep things under the carpet and it'll have strict parameters and it won't look into certain things. It certainly won't look into the government's role.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it'll achieve nothing. It'll achieve what every other report achieves, which is lessons have been learned. There may have been failings at a administration level, but we've corrected that now. And it's the same rhetoric, the same platitudes every single time we have a report. They're meaningless. And it takes so many years to produce. And by that point, no one cares anyway. We've all moved on. Now, this week is important for two things. Obviously, we've had that court case, which was, I mean, some of the testimony, some of the things they talked about. One of the girls was stabbed 122 times. I don't know how anyone can do that. It just blows my mind. But on the other side of the Atlantic, we had something different. we had Trump's inauguration. What do you think of that?
It's fantastic. You know what? I only tuned in because it said, "Oh, he's going to be sworn in. Him and JD Vance are going to be sworn in about 20 minutes." I thought, "Oh, I'll just switch it on and just have a look for 20 minutes and watch them swear their oaths and stuff." I ended up watching about 3.5 hours. I was just sat there watching it all, and I thought, "Wow, it's magnificent, isn't it?" I saw some of the people there at the parties and all sorts beforehand, the night before. And then the inauguration ceremony itself, the brass bands, the choirs, I thought it's absolutely magnificent. And I also thought Trump's speech after he'd been sworn in was absolutely superb, especially with the likes of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden just stood there over his left shoulder, and he knew exactly what he was doing. But I thought it was absolutely marvelous to watch it, and I actually, it does affect us, of course, because America affects Britain a lot, but I was far more, it's sad because I was far more enthused about Trump getting into power than I was about, say, Rishi Sunak taking over as Prime Minister or Keir Starmer coming in as Prime Minister. I'm far more excited about this Trump, Musk, whatever, this coalition of people that have come together to run that US administration. And I think they're going to do some fantastic things, especially destroying this woke mind disease that has taken over parts of the world, including ours.
Well, you were more excited for Trump because you know he brings change. It's going to be a roller coaster. We've got no idea where his presidency is going to lead. We hope it leads to a better world. But you knew exactly what Cameron, exactly what Sunak and Starmer was going to bring. They were just bringing more of the same. So there was no excitement for those premierships because we knew it was just a continuation of what's been going on for decades. Now Trump's hit the ground running. There's a video out today that I've shared this morning of ICE, which is their immigration enforcement service, smashing down doors, arresting immigrants. There's one of I think he's black, um, Haitian or Brazilian or something, and he's shouting "F Trump." I love Obama. Bring back Biden. They treated me better. And he's committed 9 crimes on American soil since he's been here, and they can't deport him. But he's in a safe city that never used to work with the immigration services, so he could stay there undercover because though that city would not deport him. But they've changed all that now on the first day of the Trump administration. What things have you seen him doing and things he's going to do that excite you?
Similar to you, I've been watching the immigration videos and I've seen whether I can't verify the photos, but from what I've seen, it's people taking them and it's lines of people being put onto planes and being sent back to their countries of origin. That's what it's showing. And it's showing people trying to get through the wall that Biden almost tore down, if you will. Um, and they're being pushed back, saying, "No, you're not coming in here anymore." And the immigration authorities are actually on Trump's side all the way through. They said they were going to vote Trump. They were sick of having to basically do their jobs with both hands tied behind their backs. They couldn't do their jobs because the administration under Biden wanted to let all these people in, and Trump's actually deporting these people at a rapid rate. I'm looking forward to how he deals with Putin. I think that's going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to him humiliating Keir Starmer on a selfish level. He's already doing that, by the way, because he's not even spoken to Starmer yet, and it's been what, 5 days? And that usually the British Prime Minister is one of the first on the list to be spoken to, and he's not even bothered to call him yet. You can just imagine the panic in Number 10. You can imagine Starmer sitting by that phone waiting for it to ring, and it simply isn't. And to see people like Farage, Braverman, Priti Patel, even Ant Middleton was there, the ex-SAS soldier, at this inauguration, and yet the Prime Minister wasn't invited. Now, to be fair, British Prime Ministers don't normally attend the inauguration, but they do always get invited. And Starmer wasn't even invited. Nobody from Labour was, as far as I can remember, and that is humiliating.
Hmm. No, fantastic. I mean, I love the way he started on day one. He got sworn in, he went straight to his office and he started signing instructions and signing, what is it, the executive orders. And he got started straight away with the things that people have been saying for decades can't be done. And he started doing it on day one. I just hope it sends the message around the world that these things can be done. I think it's going to be a great year. I think he'll make some mistakes. I don't think everything he's going to attempt will work because, he's not a god. He's only a man. But I think the fact he's trying and the fact he'll achieve so much is going to be a wonderful sight, and it's going to change Western politics.
I've just found the one person from the Labour Party that was invited to the inauguration. One. And it's a guy called Lord Glasman that I've never heard of in my life. And he's the only person apparently to be invited by Trump to the inauguration. And he said that Trump is very, very skeptical about the Labour government quotation. And he also said, apparently, he told US figures that you've mistaken us. We are not a Liberal Party, we are the Labour Party. So, what sort of message that's sending, I don't know. I think Trump, it could be really exciting for us. He could benefit us a lot if he wants to. And I think he will humiliate Labour. And I think it will be he's not going to cause a diplomatic incident. He's not going to cut off diplomatic ties or anything like that because that would be just too much trouble. It'd cause too much trouble. What he's going to do is isolate them. Mandelson, if he gets accepted at all, which is still debatable, is apparently going to have no access to go anywhere. He's basically going to be sat there and he'll be an ambassador in name only. So he's basically going to be out of a job. Lammy thinks he's Trump's best friend because he gave him an extra piece of chicken. All the statements that Lammy made are out there. Trump knows exactly what he's called him, and now he's in power. Lammy will not have access to Trump. He will not have access to the US, the administration, the White House, you name it. He will soon be out of a job. And if Starmer can't get a relationship with the US, which is absolutely critical to us, not because of not just national security and our cultural similarities, etc., in history, but also economically. The US is absolutely vital for us. They are the number one investors in the UK, and we are the number one investors in the US. And if that relationship breaks down, it won't be the US that suffers, it'll be us that suffer. And quite frankly, we're suffering enough at the moment because of this government. So Starmer's got to find a way to put people in positions who can actually work with the US. And that could mean a climb down that he can't do, and that could mean putting somebody like Farage in there or something like that, and that is something that Starmer cannot do. He'd have to resign rather than going cap in hand to someone like Nigel Farage.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I think Starmer has come to the conclusion that he has no intentions of working with Trump. I think he knows he's going to be ignored by Trump, so therefore he's not going to try. I think he hopes things may improve, but I don't think he's going to do any brown nosing, any creeping, any begging, because that will look bad upon his voter base. His voter base is very anti-American anyway. I think he'll just play it the best way he can, which is, well, the Americans ignore us, that's fine, but we ignore the Americans. Everything will happen backdoor, such as sharing of intelligence. Those things will carry on regardless of who's in power. Those things need to go on. And Trump will want those things going on because he knows whoever replaces Labour will be a better friend anyway. I just think the American government and our government will basically spend the next year or two ignoring each other.
Do you not think that Starmer did do a bit of begging? Did you not see on the day of the inauguration that silly statement that Labour put out of Starmer saying, I wish President Trump all the best and all this lot? And he's stood there giving his silly hand gestures while he's talking. So I thought, dear God, you'd have been better off saying nothing. You look desperate. There are people from the British establishment over there from all different parties, by the way, including now, as we've just found out, one from the Labour Party. But there are people from all over the establishment, and he doesn't want you there. You'd have been better keeping your mouth shut. Don't give out some silly statement like you're begging to be noticed, like, oh, I'm over here, that's absolutely ridiculous.
It was, but but having a public statement from the British Prime Minister would have been expected. If he hadn't have done it, that may then have led to the public understanding that these governments aren't getting on. At the moment, most people have got no idea what goes on in politics. So I think he was just basically trying to keep the peace. And if things go wrong, he's hoping he won't be blamed. Well, I thanked him when he became president. I put a statement out. I think this is just all diplomatic channels that I've expected. But we will see. It's going to be a fantastic year with Trump in office, and we'll find out exactly what's going on and what he achieves. Because what he achieves there will filter through here.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. And Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. A public statement. I mean, would a letter have sufficed, and then publish that letter publicly so that everyone can see you sent a letter of congratulations? And like you said, I do agree with you. You can turn around at the end if if relations do break down or whatever, and just say, well, it was nasty, Mr. Trump, nothing to do with me. I tried my best and all this stuff. But if I mean, will Starmer be willing to bend to the changes that Trump will almost certainly want in Starmer's cabinet? And Starmer can't really be seen to be bowing to the will of the American president. An American president can't be seen to be getting rid of our foreign secretary. He can't be seen to be getting rid of our ambassador. Maybe Starmer will just leave them in those jobs, even though they're absolutely powerless because the Americans simply won't deal with them. I don't know. I suspect that's probably the way it would go, actually.
I think that is the way it'll go. Because if he starts removing people to get a better relationship from Trump, his voter base, the people waiting to stab him in the back, will all jump on that. You have a weak prime minister, you have a puppet of the American prime minister, of the American president. It would be the end of him, and he knows that, and that's why he won't do it. But the country will suffer, and we will suffer because of it. But then a new government will come at some point, and then things may take off then. Ash, it's been a hell of a week with those two. They're the two stories of the week. It's been a hell of a week. Cheers for coming on, and I'll catch you soon.
Yeah. Cheers, Nick. Thank you. See you later.